Let's begin with a bow. So good evening once again, everybody, to our live stream from rainy and cold Boulder, Colorado. Rainy, rainy, rainy. It's been raining for 2 or 3 days, and the temperature, which has been hot, even up as high as 80 Fahrenheit, has been in the 40s. Caroline's up in the mountains, and I just talked to her, and she said it's snowing up there. So winter has arrived. Wonderful time to practice and be inward. So let's begin with some sitting tonight. So I'd like to begin with 12 breaths into the lower belly to help us come back, be present, and feel into our bodies. Okay, so medium to full in-breath into the lower belly, and then empty, 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 squeezing the lower belly down to 0. Hold briefly, and then let the new breath rush in for a second medium to full in-breath. Okay, so please begin. 12 breaths into the lower belly, and keeping your attention well below the navel throughout this practice. As we breathe out, you can release all of your tension into your lower belly and just let it dissolve on the out-breath. On the out-breath, completely letting go of everything. At the end of each exhale, holding out the breath just for a few seconds before you breathe in. You get done before me, just do a few more. And then let's do one more all together, and at the end of the out breath, try to empty out a little bit more and hold the breath out. And during that time, just look into your lower belly, into the stillness there. Okay, so one more, holding the breath out. And then just breathe naturally. And relax into your body. So we have this interesting experience, particularly when we're living in daily life, which is we do a practice like this and we sense a profound stillness underneath all of the commotion, but on the surface we're still racing. Our mind is still going, our body is still reacting from the stress of the day. And so the next step is to begin to establish more communication with that deep down stillness and open a pathway between the stillness of our deeper being and the kind of racetrack mentality of our daily life mind. So let's do that now. Let's begin to work with one of the most profound practices of all the body work, maybe the most profound, which is the yin breathing. And once again, the way yin breathing works is visualize a space in your lower belly, maybe 3 inches below your navel, in the middle of your body, roughly in the shape of an egg. Could be a hen's egg or a duck's egg or even a goose egg. Whatever feels right to you. And we're going to breathe into that space. That space is the womb of the earth as it appears in our body. We can do the earth descent and we can be touching the very deep space of the earth beneath us, which is, you could say, the cosmic emptiness. And then we can find that very same space in our lower belly, where it appears in the lower dantian or the hara, this goose egg, whatever. So we are wanting to make a connection with our own source, which is the same as the source of everything in the lower belly. So let's begin to breathe into it. We're visualizing a point right in the middle of that space. And we're going to begin to bring the breath right to that point. We're not coming down through the nostrils, we're coming straight to that point, as if that point itself were a set of nostrils, and we're breathing right into it. When we start doing this practice, there's going to be a lot of speed on the surface, and that's okay. You know, if we've been driving, our body is going to be hyper. We're going to be we're in our sympathetic nervous system now, which is just a lot of activation, a lot of energy, a lot of self-protection maybe, a lot of mental speed, a lot of emotional jangle. That's okay. When we start the practice, that's where we're at. But we have to somewhat set that aside enough so we can breathe into the lower belly, into the yin space in the lower belly. So breathing in. Just stay with the practice. Feel the purity of the breath going into the lower belly. Trying to align ourselves with the breath. Letting our peripheral being fold into the breath as we breathe into the lower belly. And you can even fold in, if you're feeling sorrow or sadness, you can fold that in too. Because sometimes that's what comes up as we begin to slow down. And feeling ourselves breathing into that point and dissolving into it as much as we can as we breathe in. We might feel our being resisting that process of letting go into the lower belly, and just try to relax and release that resistance. And as you're breathing in, try to begin to feel the space in the lower belly. Having the feeling of opening that space up. Peeling away the layers, parting the curtain in the lower belly. So here's the pointing out practice, which we've done before. So we're breathing into the lower belly. We're feeling the space. And we're going to visualize that space is like a curtain. And we're going to pull it apart. We're going to pull the two sides apart. And see what happens, what's on the other side when we do. So once again, I'll count to 3. And then pull those two sides of the curtain apart and look right at that moment. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. There's a moment right when I say go of complete openness in the lower belly. Which lingers. And we need to hang out with it, and we need to let it work on us. The unconditioned space of our basic being begins to work on us, on our surface being. 1, 2, 3, go. All you have to do is lean into it, and it works on you. And it changes you, and it heals you. Okay, so one more time. When I say go, part the curtain and look into the utter openness, the utter emptiness. And lean toward it, lean into it. 1, 2, 3, go. And if the space begins to cloud over, just open it again. Have that feeling of sweeping aside the debris, opening the curtain as we sit here. Open and surrender into it. What we are surrendering is our current state of being, and it's not going to be in very good shape. We are surrendering this confused, speedy, anxious tumult of a person into the purity of the original state. Okay, so breathing into the lower belly. Feeling the space there. And then I'm going to count to 3 again. Part the curtain. See the utter openness, the emptiness, and fall into it with your conditioned self. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, now we're going to take this one more step, and I'm going to show you a practice that is very ancient, goes back to India. We're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to fall through the part in the curtain, and we're going to visualize ourselves falling through space. And we're going to visualize our body beginning to come undone, to break up, and to disappear. Okay? Here we go. So breathing into the lower belly. Just calm down. Just feel the deep peace in the lower belly. And feel the ease when you breathe into it and relax into it. And then looking at the space there, feeling the space. 1, 2, 3, go. There's the utter emptiness. Fall through it. Fall through it and feel yourself falling through space. And the space begins to permeate your body and your joints. And your bones. And your body begins to break up. arms coming off, the feet, the legs, your head, your torso. And then each of those begins to fragment. Your organs, your heart, your skeleton. More and more space flooding your being. And everything about you is fragmenting and dissipating. Meantime, you can feel the cool breeze of space and how beautiful and delicious. And more that becomes your experience as you let go of your coherence as a person. Falling, falling, falling. Feel the breeze of space. And then your cells begin to spread out throughout the universe. And become the stars. And then you are the space itself, just the open, empty, endless awareness. And the universe is your body. Just let go into it. As we do this, something begins to happen to our heart. See if you can feel that. There's something brewing there. Some kind of wild excitement and longing and joy all at once. See if you can feel that. The more you let go, more you open, more you feel. You have no body but the universe. You have no being but the universe itself. Your heart becomes wild. So just extend and open and feel the trillions and trillions of stars in the hundreds of billions of galaxies that are your true body. And see how your heart is about that. Very good. Thank you. This is our true state of affairs. Number one, the fact that there is always this reservoir of stillness in our body, in our lower belly, always. It's always there. And that we can connect with it anytime. And secondly, when we do, it becomes a gateway to the most amazing and stunning experiences of our human possibility. We lose ourselves, of course, constantly. Every minute of every day, we're constantly losing ourselves in a much smaller experience of the universe. And the way we work with that in the practicing lineage is we keep coming back to our practice, and we touch these really states that are more fabulous than you read in any fairy tale or any nursery rhyme, or even any astrophysics book. We touch them, and they're a matter of our own personal experience. And it reminds us who we are and where we are and what we're doing. And then we return to our life and we get lost again. And then we come back. And this is why daily practice is so important. Because it's a reminder, and it's not the kind you put on your refrigerator. Remember to stay in touch. It's actually taking an hour of our day and spending that time in eternity and in infinity. Even if you feel your practice is going around in circles, it isn't. The minute you begin to do the practice, working with your body, you're working with these very profound parts of our state of being. The path of practice is painful, and it's painful because We lose it, we're lost, and then we come back. And then we lose it, we're lost, and we come back over and over and over. But every time you come back, you don't come back in the same way, and you don't come back as fully. And ultimately, we're looking for a point when we don't come back. It's called non-returning. It's not that you don't return to the world, but you don't return to the conventional mind and the pettiness and the smallness of our human ego. So that's we set our sights on that, and it's very difficult, it's very challenging. It would be in some ways less painful just to watch TV, but that's not who we are, and that's not what we're called to. So this practice I taught you tonight comes from the tradition that was taught in Tibet and was taught in India originally, and then taught in Tibet. Some of you may have practiced it, but this is a much more, I would say, naked version of the same thing. It doesn't have the liturgy, and it doesn't have the ritual, it doesn't have the mantras, and it doesn't have a lot of the forms. But it's the naked somatic experience of the practice, and you can certainly do this. Anytime you feel you're a little too solid, you can do this practice, and it will remind you that your body is as big as the universe, and this little tight ball of tension that you've been walking around with it's on its last legs. Okay, well, I'd like to invite Elizabeth to come join me and see what questions you have. And this is a wonderful part of our live streams because I get to connect with you and you get to connect with me. Good evening, Elizabeth.
Hi, Reggie.
How are you?
I'm really well.
Good.
That
Nice
was
to see
great
you.
practice, because there was a big contrast between where I was at when we started and where I'm at now. It's really nice.
Me too.
Yeah. I want to find a question actually that I think tied in what you just spoke about a little bit. Alex from Colorado asks, do movies, novels, and other distractions retract progress or clarity gained in meditation? I heard someone say that in order to have breakthrough insights, we need to build up a momentum through meditation that is forfeited anytime we get lost in a movie or neglect to be mindful. What are your thoughts?
I went to a movie the other night. I went to see The Martian. And I didn't really feel like I was backtracking at all. You know, the thing is, we have to nourish our relative mind in the right way. It has to be nourished. You can't starve it to death. The Buddha tried that and it didn't work. He thought, he practiced 6 years of asceticism, and he was thinking, well, I will just, I'm going to hang out with these other guys that are doing the same thing. He had these other 5 friends, and all of them were like eating 1 sesame seed a day and standing in weird postures just to try to starve out the relative state of being. And their theory was the same as what this person has been hearing, that if you in any way feed the relative state of being, you're doing a bad thing. And that's not the tantric point of view. The tantric point of view is that we have to relax and we have to truly nourish our body and our psyche. We have to nourish our body through good food. Let's talk about in modern terms. We have to nourish our body through good food and sleep and appropriate exercise. We need to nourish ourselves with relationships, with love, with the challenges, with the ups and downs of family life, working with people that we don't like. In a weird kind of way that's nourishing for us. It's, there has to be a certain amount of stress or we don't grow. But if there's too much stress, we also don't grow. So, we need to find a zone where our body and our psyche and our basic being is being nourished. And if there's too much ambition around spirituality, it actually starts to go in the wrong direction, and it becomes a kind of ego mentality. So, but that being said, there are certain things in our culture that are just inherently not nourishing. And I think art is very, very nourishing, and I would include good movies in that also. But I think, as we've talked about a lot, the tremendous amount of time people spend looking at electronic screens is actually very damaging to the brain and damaging to the human psyche and damaging to our emotional system. So I do think we have to be intelligent. We have to, we have to restrict ourselves and not eat, junk food, and not, poison our brains by spending too much time looking at flashing screens and, not getting enough sleep and, allowing ourselves to become, run down physically. These are not helpful to the spiritual journey at all.
Bridget asks, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how our somatic practice, like the one we did last week, might intersect with those stressful times in life when our physiology is activated, hormonally, chemically, when we're in a fight or flight state. I've noticed that the somatic awareness I've gained also has made me more sensitive to my body's physiology when I'm stressed. How do I work with regulating my discomfort and cortisol levels?
Yeah, it's really true. I think if you spend your entire life in your sympathetic nervous system, meaning the so-called fight or flight response, and you have permanently high cortisol and norepinephrine and adrenaline level, especially cortisol is the one that's going to be permanent, can be, you don't really notice it, and it almost becomes addictive. A lot of people like that, and a lot of people like to keep themselves up on that kind of an adrenaline and cortisol high by drinking coffee and working long hours and so on. And I know this myself. I mean, this has been my pattern also throughout my life, that I tend to. It's just you get up at 20,000, 29,000 feet in your airplane, and you're cruising. But the problem is, of course, you're completely disconnected from your own life. So you do become much more sensitive, and when you begin to do the body work, as the question implies, the body work really helps you to come back into it helps activate your parasympathetic nervous system and to downregulate and to enter into a state of homeostasis in your body, which is experiences peace, and it can be very blissful and very open, and our emotions begin to flow the way they need to. And once you've experienced that, then when you get activated, when you get revved up, when you get stressed, when you get freaked out, it's much, much, much more painful. And there's really the only way to deal with that is to downregulate. And so, if you're in a kind of high stress physiological state, you need to downregulate. You need to, what I will do sometimes is just, I'm in the middle of doing something and writing something, and I'll just take a break, and I'll lie down on the floor, and I'll do yin breathing, and just to bring myself down. And in a way, you could say, it's sort of a losing situation, because our modern life does rev us up so much. But over time, what happens is your ability to be in externally stressful situations and to not respond by fight or flight, activation develops. You gain more capacity to do it. There's a saying in Chan Buddhism that all the dusts are your own. Not one dharma belongs to anybody else. And basically what they're saying is, if you have a problem with the world around you, and that's what we're talking about now, that we all have a problem with the world around us, it's our problem in the sense that it's within our capacity to resolve it and to solve it. And I think that's the direction we're looking at through daily practice, and also through downregulating. You can be in a meeting and you find your mind is out there in the meeting and becoming very anxious, you can just begin to breathe into your lower belly, and part of you is listening to what's going on, but the main part of you is in your lower belly and tracking what's happening there. And you can do, I'm not saying you can do the whole practice we just did, but you can do the yin breathing, and you really can come back and down regulate. And through doing that, you will begin to gain the capacity to be in situations that in the past would have totally stressed you out, but in the present they really don't, because you're able to stay home, you're not being pulled out, and you're not being activated. And I think that's the meaning of that saying, all dusts belong to you. You have the capacity really, through working with yourself, to be in any situation whatsoever. In the practicing lineage, that's called bringing your practice state of mind into your daily life. And we're literally talking about bringing that mind into your daily life. So I think the situation the questioner raises is very painful, but it's a good one to have. It means you see what the work needs to be and where you need to go.
Mm-hmm. This is from Mass, who lives in New Zealand. In your teaching and instruction, often you mention dignity, especially in the formal sitting. Currently, I can relate to it in a conceptual way, but I'm interested in the somatic exploration of dignity. That seems to be what the lineage asks from us. Please speak more on this.
Dignity, this is a very wonderful question, really. The dignity we're talking about is self-existing dignity. Now we could say, where does that come from and how do we find it? When we work with the body and when we work with the central channel and we begin to experience from the point of view of the central channel our whole body, and we do that through the first three yanas, through working the body work, through sitting meditation, and through somatic descent, we gain what I would call as a non-egocentric view or experience of our body. And what we're experiencing there is it's awareness itself that is dignified. Awareness itself, as again, I've been reading Hong Zhu, my most profound and beloved meditation teacher. Hong Zhu says that the natural state in us is upright and undefiled and utterly dignified. That's the nature of the awareness in our body. It's upright, it's undefiled, and it's utterly dignified. And when we tap into that quality and that feeling, our whole body feels that way. And there's a sense of unconditioned confidence, unconditioned dignity, unconditioned openness. And that is when we talk about the beauty of the human person, that's what we're talking about. That dignity permeates. It's not just the empty awareness of our central channel, but it's the whole presentation of our body and the unique person that we begin to feel in our body. That person is dignified. So we end up with this very beautiful, it's not the lineage is asking us to feel dignified, but we're talking about discovering a dignity in our human life that is already there and that we haven't previously seen. It's very, very beautiful.
Kat asks, in some of your talks you've mentioned the lineage driving the bus, and how the more one moves towards seeing their authentic self, the more the lineage can move through you. She's basically asking, how do I open to that happening more? And is there a certain strength of association with the lineage necessary for this to clearly unfold? For example, simply taking refuge versus being a lineage holder.
Well, you have to understand the lineage is ultimately life itself. It's the lineage of life, and when it arrives in the human world, different religions, try to claim they have some kind of special access to it, but they don't. Nobody has special access to it. There are some traditions that have figured out that it's really about life itself, and that's the understanding of the practicing lineage. So when we talk about the being close to the lineage and the lineage driving us, we're not talking about a religion, or we're not talking about any kind of formal tradition or cultural inheritance. We're talking about that we are, the more we do this body work, the more we open to who we are, the more that irresistible power of life begins to flow through us, and the closer we are to life itself. And the more, again, in the human realm, it always comes down to practice. It's just a matter, as Rinpoche said to me over and over and over, just do the practice. There really isn't any shortcut. There aren't any tricks. Just do the practice every day. And it's like the water dripping on a stone. Eventually the practice has its impact, and you feel it throughout your whole life, and you become over time a different person. So at that point, you're throughout this whole journey, your own openness to this river of life that flows through us and wants to flow through all people in a completely unrestricted way. It begins to flow through us in a quite unrestricted way, and it's a very natural process. If taking refuge is something that calls you and helps you and supports you, then by all means do it. If signing up for a particular tradition helps you do it, then you should, but it's not required. And really, you have to figure out where is the greatest openness, where is the greatest challenge for you, where are you holding back, and what do you need to let go of. And if you're willing to listen and follow the call, then it's just like a ripe fruit falling off a tree.
This is from Clyde. He says, I'm a former student of yours. I'm wondering if a belief in God prohibits one from practicing the somatic teaching and meditation. Thank you so much.
Well, it depends what you believe in. I know many, many, many people who are Christian. They're deeply devoted to their tradition, and they're doing the same thing we are. There's no difference at all. And the reason is for them, now we're back to Hildegard von Bingen, this wonderful mystic. She says that God is all things. God is the life in all things. And that's what we're talking about. So if that's what you're talking about, then there's, not only is there no problem, but it's actually necessary. For me, you could say, well, is there anything I believe in? Yes, there is. Life, with a capital L, the life that was born in the beginning of the universe out of nothing, and that flows through everything that is. To me, that is the most sacred reality. And somebody could easily say to me, well, that's what I mean by God. If you have no belief at all, if you have no belief in sacredness, then life becomes very much a nihilistic situation. Now here's an important point. My belief in life it's not abstract. It's something that I have come to out of my own experience. And I think, for any of us that are spiritual practitioners, anything that any value that we have has to come out of that kind of testing. So if believing in God is a matter of direct experience in your life, then we're in good shape. But if you set something up that you actually have not experienced, but you're putting your trust in, then I would say that's not going to be helpful in the long run. So belief in God is fine, but it has to be directly and completely experiential. Whatever you mean by God has to be something that you've discovered in your own experience. And then it's a good thing. it's a good thing to have. I wouldn't say I believe in life, but I know life to be the ultimate value, the ultimate sacred reality through my own experience. It's the ultimate reference point for me.
Dunya in California asks, I was wondering what role you see prayer as playing in the practice of somatic meditation. By prayer, I mean something like lineage prayers or aspiration prayers common in Buddhist tradition.
Mm-hmm. I learned something really important from Meladoma Some, the West African spiritual teacher. You should never say a prayer that someone else has uttered. Every prayer that you make should be your own prayer for right now. When we approach it that way, I'll just talk personally, prayer is really, really important. Now you could say, when do we use prayer? We use prayer when we are lost, when we feel we're in big trouble, when we feel completely confused. Then we should call out, we have to call out for help. We have to call out for help, because the truth of the matter is we can't do this ourselves. We have to rely on the universe around us, on the kindness and the blessings that are everywhere in life. And prayer is our way of connecting with that, and we have to do it. There's no other way. If we don't find ourselves praying frequently to whoever, whatever, however you want to put it, to life, to the universe. I pray to Trungpa Rinpoche because he was such a force in my own life, whatever. If we don't find ourselves praying several times a day, then it's become too personal. And we have too much arrogant belief in our own capacity. Everything that is taught in this lineage is about realizing that the ego does not have the capacity. Yes, we can do the practices. The body is the teacher and we can tap into the body, but sometimes we can't tap into the body. We're so confused and so lost, we can't even do that. And then we have to pray. We have to.
Can I go a little bit further
Yeah,
with that
please.
and ask?
Yeah.
I know for myself, I went through a phase with all the lineage prayers that we do have,
Yeah.
and I think that's what this person's working with is, the protector chants and
Yeah.
prayer to Chogyam Trungpa and all of that. I noticed for myself for a while, I just wanted to sit almost in like silent prayer,
Yeah.
or the prayer in my heart. But I also had this longing to follow the tradition and do the liturgy, and I really wrestled with those two things for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can speak more to that, because there's also that desire to follow the form. Let's say you're doing Nandro or.
The form, the way I see it, the forms are a container. Like for me, we have many protector chants. We have, as you know, we have different beings. We have Pele, and we have the indigenous shrine, and prayers to the indigenous people, and we have some of the Buddhist protectors, and those create a kind of container for us in our lineage. But then you have to live in the container. You have to live, and for me, I do one protector chant a day, and the one I do is Ritra Gumpo, he's the protector of meditation. I don't know why. It's just the one I feel the most connected with. But I have in mind all the other ones that we do. And sometimes if I can't do that, I will just do 4 lines from that, just to stay connected. And sometimes I don't do anything formal. I just connect directly. I will pray to one of the protectors for help in a certain situation. So, but I think, you raise a good point. First we need to sort of learn the tradition, and we need to know what it feels like to pray and what prayers can contain, and the kinds of relationships that the chants or the prayers open up. But then it does need to become living, and as Trungpa Rinpoche said to me, you can say them, but if you're not there, you're not doing anything. And I think that's the bottom line, is the feeling that we might have.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, you do the protector chants. I did them for like 35 years, and then at a certain point, I begin to realize what's really going on here, and then I can talk myself directly, if you see what I mean. Is that kind of how you experienced it?
Mm-hmm. For me, I got so tight
Yeah.
that it all became really dead for me.
Exactly.
And I was doing it out of fear and out of duty.
Yes, exactly.
And finally, it was in solitary retreat, and I actually just started weeping. And like I was talking to the lineage and talking to the protectors, saying, "I do not want to do these chants anymore. I don't understand what the point is." But actually being real
really
and
there.
honest and available,
Yeah.
and just sobbing, and it was really, really transformative.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's very beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
Mhm.
it. That's it. Yeah.
It took me a while to get back to it after that, but the connection was there.
Yeah.
And that's
You at that
all
point you got
matters.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you knew. Okay, now I see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Marjorie, how do the somatic practices assist us when dying and when in between lifetimes, when we no longer have the body we have now?
This is a very, of course, pertinent question nowadays, because throughout our culture there's a recognition that the way we handle death is really, in many cases, terrible. And people are doing a lot of rethinking. In Dharma Ocean, we have a new kind of project that we're working on. It's called End of Life Awakening. And the idea is that the end of life, rather than being a situation of decay and deterioration, fundamentally, mentally, spiritually, physically, which is the way it's viewed in our culture, that the end of life is actually a very different process, or can be. It can be a process of awakening in a way that was not possible earlier in life. And the pathway to that awakening is the body. And it might seem ironic to say this, that as we are dying, as we are entering old age and the body's beginning to fall apart, and as we become ill, and then, if we're lucky, we have some pathway towards death, it's not a sudden death, that actually, it might seem ironic to say that within that situation, the body actually becomes even more sacred and even more important for the journey than it was earlier, but it's true. So, working with our own death and our own dying process and the dying process of people around us, our approach in Dharma Ocean is help people really be with what's going on in a non-judgmental way. And you might think it's impossible. It's not impossible. If you're dying and everybody around you is freaking out and trying to change what's happening in your body and, filling you full of chemicals because they can't take what's actually occurring, then it's going to be very difficult for you as the dying person to take advantage of the spiritual possibilities at that point in your own life. However, if the people around you have confidence in what's happening, they understand the dying process as part of life, as part of the life cycle, and they also see themselves that the more we are within our own somatic being, and the more we surrender to it, the more gates open up into a much bigger world, then the dying process becomes a very, very different experience, and it's painful, it's frightening, but there's a sense of underlying confidence and workability, because the dying person can discover step by step moments and gates that are much bigger than just sort of falling apart, deteriorating and dying. So I would say to Marjorie, don't overthink it. Let's not worry about the bardo, and let's not worry about floating around with no body, but let's work with the actual human body we have and the actual process that we can engage in as a community around dying. And I think that will actually take care of all the problems.
I've heard some of our Sangha members that are hospice workers also
Yes.
talk about the somatic practices are so powerful for people because you do them lying down, which
Yes.
is usually the way that we die.
Yes, exactly.
Or in our bed in the hospital.
Yeah.
It's a great way to practice.
Tell me, have people given you some stories? Or?
No, just that piece of,
Yeah.
it was the teacher training. My Jonathan, who works as a hospice worker, was
Yeah.
saying that.
How powerful
piece.
they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially for people that are used to meditating and think I can't meditate unless I'm sitting up with a straight spine.
Yeah.
And the power of just being able to just lay and be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot opens up, as we know. When we lie down, it's like, whoa, there's a whole world here. Well, that doesn't stop just because your body is sick at all. In fact, it becomes more accessible. The weaker your body becomes, the more the gates open.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're kind of missing that in our culture. We're missing that opportunity, and it's very, very, very sad, very tragic. Yeah.
This question is, I would like advice on when to consult the wisdom of the Soma versus when to consult the wisdom of other divination measures, such as the I Ching, and what is the relationship between those two forms of wisdom? Can you speak on how to approach divination in a non-theistic way?
Well, as a person who uses the I Ching extensively, I would say that the I Ching and the Soma it's the same thing. And you can either approach it, the Soma is the most direct way to do it. And Trungpa Rinpoche once said something really interesting about divination, which he did too. He used a certain kind of divination. He said that your body already knows the answer before you do the divination. But you don't trust your body, and so you have to do the divination to trust what you already knew. He got it. That's it. That's exactly the process. There are times, in my case, where I basically know what's going on, but I don't want to admit it. And so I'll get the I Ching out because either I can't believe it or I can't even see it because it's not something I really want to hear. And I throw the I Ching, and then I go, yeah, I knew that. So they're very much in line. But not all divination systems are, how can I put this? Divination systems depend a lot on the integrity of the person who's doing the divination. Mm-hmm. And I personally feel, like with the I Ching, that sometimes it's helpful to have someone else throw the I Ching with you, but you have to make sure that person has a tremendous amount of integrity and that they're very straight on. That's always the danger of getting other people to interpret things for you, for your life, because sometimes you don't know for sure what's going on with them and how much of their stuff is being involved. So that is obviously something to think about. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shannon in Boulder asks, I've noticed over the last few years my motivation to do things I used to want and like to do has fallen away. It's like parts of my identity have lost its hold. Mm. It's strange and disorienting. It can be from like, I need to make money, but I don't want to do the things I used to do, or do I want to go hiking? I don't know. It's like my point of references have disappeared. Do you have any words of wisdom about this part of the journey?
Well, I'd say congratulations. It's a very wonderful space that's opening up in you, and I think it's very frightening, for the reason. Shanley?
Shannon.
Shannon,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. For the reasons stated, it feels very dangerous, and it feels like I'm not going to be able to do anything anymore. But I think those kind of doubts are not really relevant, and I think coming back, working with the body, and recommitting yourself to finding out underneath these things that are not as meaningful anymore, what is the direction that your body wants you to take? Because as long as we're alive, there's going to be a direction, and we just need to find out what it is. But often it's so subtle, and it's so out of sight. In the beginning, we think there isn't anything, but it's not like that. There is something, but we often have to do a lot of work to figure out what it is.
Mm-hmm. Andrew in Brooklyn, I'm hoping you can speak about paranoia on the spiritual path. To speak from personal experience, I've been experiencing a sense of opening in my heart, solar plexus, and lower belly that's triggering a lot of fear. I've noticed that the main fear is that allowing this letting go to occur will lead me to going insane or dying. Clearly my ego is freaking out. It seems like paranoia is one of its last defenses, but I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is true that the more we come into contact with the possibilities of openness and, connecting with the world around us that, is very unknown, the more fear is going to be stirred up. And I think it's true of everybody. I think everybody, the more I practice, the more I realize how quick and deep the fear responses are. And, all I can say is don't push too hard. And, if you get to a point where you think you're going to go insane, it's not the thought. First of all, you're not going to go insane. And but the thing is, the thought is very frightening. And if you hit upon that thought, which I know what you're talking about because that's happened to me in dark retreat a couple of times, I actually thought I was going insane. That's a very scary thought. It really scares you. First you're paranoid, but then you start getting paranoid about being paranoid. And that's very heavy. At that point you just lie down on the floor and do yin breathing and down-regulate, come back. It's very simple. It's because our experience does become much more heightened the more we meditate. We see so much more about ourselves and about the world, and because we become so much more sensitive, and also because our connection with our own deepest history is now kind of becoming more and more of an open book. There's just a lot of jitteriness in our mind, and we can easily spin out, and we do spin out. And that's why we have to stay close to our body. And if we start spinning out, we've got to just simply down-regulate whatever you want to do. Lie down on the floor. You can do some wonderful lower belly breathing, lying in a Epsom salts bath. I mean, we have to be creative. But we also have to keep it simple. If we start spinning out, come back to the body, whatever that means for you. And just do it automatically. Don't let yourself spin out, because right now you're too sensitive, I'm too sensitive, Elizabeth's too sensitive to really indulge the spinning out too far. It's not helpful.
This is kind of along that same line. Dominic, I started the Touching Enlightenment course recently and did 10 points practice, and I was smashed. My body feels like a great void, and the energy is so intense I can't sleep. Mm-hmm. Lots of thoughts, lots of memories, stories, wave after wave. And my question is, how do I bear it?
You don't bear it. It's unbearable. Life is unbearable. I mean, I think, in the beginning, we are so numb. It's kind of like when your hand goes to sleep, like your hand's in a weird position and you go to sleep and it goes numb, and then you wake up and all of a sudden there's this incredible tingling as the blood is flowing in, and there's no problem. It's actually a good thing, but it hurts. And I think, when we have been largely numb in our life, and then we begin to connect with our own body, as Andrew did, and like through 10 points practice, then all kinds of stuff begins to happen. And I would again, if it becomes unbearable, do something else. Go for a walk, lie down, take a break. It's so important with this practice to get to know our body step by step. We don't have to do it all at once. And maybe in Andrew's case, he actually has a tremendous amount of capacity, and he was able to open up through 10 points very, very quickly. If that's the case, then I would just do a little bit less practice. So you have to kind of regulate the volume of experience, and you can regulate it. It's very easy to do. You just, if you start getting into a space where it's too intense, then let the practice go, lie down, just breathe into your lower belly and relax, come back. It's very straightforward, it's very simple. And if we do that, if we stay close to our body, we're not pushing on things, and we don't, allow ourselves to spin out beyond a certain point, then, over time, you develop much, much more capacity to handle very extreme emotional states. And, ultimately, those states are in us, it's just we're not aware of them. So there's a tremendous benefit to being able to do that, to being able to handle all of these emotions that human beings go through. when we're able to do that, then we start to be able to actually have sympathy for other people, and we see how it is for them and why they are the way they are. So unfortunately, the difficulties Andrew is having are part of developing the capacity to eventually actually love other people.
Williams asked, I've been trying the somatic descent practice with and without the guided meditation. I find my mind filled with lots of questions instead of getting an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Should I wait to do this practice until I've achieved some level of proficiency with yin breathing or other practices? He's also asking in the somatic descent, though, about like what should I do with my life. So he's also wondering if maybe he's just trying to get somewhere with it too much or something.
I don't think so. There's a tradition, Western tradition called focusing, developed by Eugene Genlin, and it's taught in the Boulder area by my friend David Rome. And they take people who have no experience meditating and they tell them to ask their body questions, and it does work. The thing about somatic descent is that it's not as easy as it sounds, to be honest with you, even if you've been meditating a long time. And sometimes you have to really kind of work at it day in and day out. I was talking with one of my friends yesterday about this, and he was saying that a lot of times, he actually remembered me saying that a lot of times you do somatic descent, nothing really happens. But he said that's true for him, but he said that when he does do it on a daily basis, his overall somatic, I would say, wisdom and guidance is heightened, whether it's about seeing what's going on with people, or he gave the example of being in the grocery store and trying to pick out, some food that his body really liked. So the overall sensitivity comes up, but you might not get the answer, to like the life direction right away. But I think the practice is really worth doing. I think if you're in, a place in your life where you really need guidance, and you need guidance from your own deeper being, it's not about reading more books or going to more job interviews, but you need something deeper, I would do it. And don't worry if it takes, if you spend, weeks or even months without getting an answer, because eventually your body's going to definitely show you. And I would also keep an eye on your dreams, because a lot of times when you do somatic descent, the level of dreams comes up and they become more clear, because dreams are the language of the body, and the body will speak to us sometimes in dreams and not directly through the soma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tim in San Francisco, there are so many different meditations you teach. Sometimes I get confused about how to practice. I'm used to doing just one meditation for a long time to really practice and embody it. Are we supposed to pick one that feels right to us and really dedicate ourselves, or are we to jump around and do all the different meditations you offer as you offer them?
Well, I would say there's a main practice that we teach, which is sitting meditation, shikantaza. And that's the practice that I do. That's sort of my baseline. And then I think the other question is, where are you on the path? For example, somebody who is just starting out, you really do need to do a lot of body work. You need to, it's like somebody who's, world-class skier. They'll work on every part of their body in order so when they ski down the slope, they can be 100% there. And it's the same thing with sitting meditation. We need to spend time in the beginning when we're starting to connect with somatic meditation, developing the capacity to feel our body, to feel the inner space, to understand the non-solidity of the body, all of these things, to work with tension. And so what I would say, let's say, it doesn't sound like he's at the beginning, but let's say he were. I would say at that point to go through the body work. We have 6 yanas in Dharma Ocean. We have 6 stages of spiritual unfolding. And we need all of them eventually as part of our life. But to begin with, doing meditating with the body, or going through the 20 CD set of Your Breathing Body, and maybe taking 2 weeks per CD, which is almost a year, I would do it that way. Or if you have done that and then you're beginning to do sitting meditation. I do a couple years of shikantaza and just do that. Don't do anything else. And then, somatic descent adds another piece when you're ready for that. And then at a certain point, learn the bodhicitta. The important point about this whole spiritual path is we're building capacity, and all of the work of the first jhana or the ground jhana, or we could say the body work, all of that becomes incorporated into shikantaza. So if you've done a good job and laid a good foundation with the all the protocols of your breathing body or meditating with the body, then when you do shikantaza, they're all there, and you don't need to go back to them. And if you do shikantaza, it's a very natural development that you become much more sensitive to the eventfulness and the wisdom and the guidance of your body, which is what's developed in somatic descent. You do that in basically shikantaza position, mostly. And then when you do that, your heart begins to open. So, in other words, it's very important to go step by step, but I also agree you need to have some particular practice or set of practices that you're working with during a given period, not just jump around. I wouldn't recommend that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think that was clear enough?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I do. That was great.
So, it's getting late. Maybe one more?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is from Jay Reed in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a stark contrast of the before and after when I do my practice. He's doing prostrations.
Oh, yeah.
Before practice, I feel so shut down, depressed, paranoid. It's easy to feel disheartened and judge myself. It's a strong motivation for practice, but I feel as if I'm literally fleeing out of my bed and onto the meditation cushion and my prostration board.
I know the feeling. Yeah.
Maybe this is fine, although something about it feels dualistic. I've been trying to create a sense of accommodation between these two extremes and to bring the troubling feelings into my practice with a sense of love, rather than use them only as a reason to run and practice. Wondering what your advice might be.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what he's talking about. It's kind of what I was just, the practice I just led, whereas you acknowledge your relative state of being, which could be a complete mess, and often is a complete mess. And you just have to kind of do it. And, the practice I taught you was, you go into the lower belly, you breathe in the lower belly. Yeah, you don't feel like doing it, that's fine, just do it. There is this big discrepancy. Just do it, as Rinpoche used to say. Breathe into your lower belly, open the gate, there's the space. Let's do it 3 or 4 times. And then now we're going to take this messed up, relative, confused, speedy, anxious, fight or flight situation of a person, and we're going to just jump through the hole. We're just going to throw ourselves into it. And that's exactly how you do prostrations. There's no other way to do it. You bring the mess that you are to your prostrations, and that pitiful excuse of a human person is now going to do prostrations. And you do them, and that's it. And he doesn't have to, there's kind of some finagling around the edges there. He wants to do it the right way and, kind of do this and that. But the first thing he said was right. You get out of bed and you just go for the board. And you don't think about it. That's how it is. The ego is never going to be okay about practicing, and because the ego does not want to be dismantled, and the ego does not want to be seen through. So you have to just kind of dive into it and not think about it, or you won't do it. If you think about it, you won't do it.
Mm-hmm. And what you said about wanting to do it well, if you are going to do it,
yeah.
It's like Trungpa, didn't he say the ego wants to attend its own funeral?
That's right. That's right. Very good. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for being with us. Wonderful, wonderful questions tonight, and such an interesting kind of conversation we're having here. It's a little frightening, the sort of intelligence that's coming through. At the same time, it's inspiring, and I really appreciate your openness. So let's close with a bow.